Welcome to Unique People Stories. People who asked for a pencil every single day in school. How is life going for you? I'd love to give you the long version. But my phone's about to die. Can I borrow your charger? So, my best friend did this. We are both adults with jobs now. I asked him the other day if he remembers a pen, and he said his coworkers had gotten together to give him a humongous pen stand stuffed with pens to stop him from asking. I had a friend in high school that could never remember or keep a lighter. For Christmas one year we got her dozens of lighters. A cigar box cartoonishly overflowing with them. She ran out in early March or so. Now they're asking for phone chargers. Oh, this drives me nuts. My kids' friends will walk into the house and unplug my phone to start charging theirs. Also, my kids will straight up unplug my charger and take it to their room. I raided my daughter's room about a month ago and came back downstairs with 5 lightning chargers. In the meantime, my wife is trying to wiggle her raggedy old off-brand cord to find the little sweet spot where it will work. So back in grade 3 by the middle of the year, every classmate in my class of around 28 of us was asking for a pencil every other day or 3 because they would randomly go missing. Fast forward a bit and our teacher was making us do the bi-monthly desk cleaning. As we empty out our desks of books and forgotten assignments, a nearby classmate sets their pencil case on top of their desk with a large thud. Some of us look and gaze upon a pencil case like no other. Now, this pencil case was your standard 6 by 10 inch rectangle, but it was packed so full of pencils that it was a solid cylinder. We started making a scene and the teacher came over to see what was amiss. What followed was the emptying of the pencil case, in which the whole class rediscovered their pencils from the past few months. Fucking Michael. Hoarding everyone's pencils. Fucking Michael. Jan Levinson agrees. No Gould? Is Gould dead? I knew a guy in high school that would say, "Oh, there's my pencil," anytime he'd see a pencil that someone didn't actively have next to them. Then he'd put it in his pencil case and go on with his life. Very few people caught on because he was just so casual about it. I'd ask to borrow a pencil almost any time I saw him do it, and he'd just as casually take one out, hand it to me and say, "Don't forget to give it back." I never did. We both knew what the other was up to, but we found it funny to play along. We became best friends and cycled across Canada for charity together a few years ago. Really well. Now that I'm an adult in control of my environment and a budget, I can keep a small drawer on my desk that's dedicated to stationary utensils that work. I've also learned that supplies aren't expensive or hard to get. When I used to assume that people who were fully stocked had some sort of special access to things like teachers, same for things from the pharmacy, like band-aids and batteries and eye drops. So now I'm the person with the odd thing you need when you don't know you need it. And it feels good. Man. That was my experience as well. I do have ADHD, so I might have been organized or likely to lose things in some areas. So when I got a little bit older, I just started buying pens and stashing them everywhere. I was never without something to write with. My parents acted like my school supply spending back in those days, it was like $20 a year. And my dad made a good income, was completely out of control. Now I buy myself nice pens and even fountain pens. I chose to study computer science. Losing a laptop is much harder than losing a pencil. I work in IT. At least 3 times a week someone comes to borrow a laptop because they forgot theirs. It's slowed down a bit now that everyone is working from home and a replacement takes a week. I would also like to borrow one of these laptops. I swear I'll bring it back tomorrow. The pencil mafia wants me to pay up. They have my family. Send help. I'm okay. Still disorganized. But I've learned to maintain stashes of pens, paper and other necessities in every single bag, pocket or drawer that I own. Some of which I have even bought myself. I was that kid. I had friends tell me, "My dad says I can't lend you a pen ever again." Teachers would sometimes out me to the class for being irresponsible. None of it worked. I was dumb and not wired for planning ahead. I also used to carry my books, jacket, lunchbox and backpack separately in a rush to the car, bus, next period. Now I'm a trial attorney and fortunate to be busy. But man, that was a long road. I fear my future kids. Now I'm a special ed teacher. Teaching kids who lose their pencil 15 times a day how to remember their pencils. Is this karma? Once knew a kid who went through her entire schooling life without owning any exercise books or a pencil case. She used to ask for a spare piece of paper and a pen every lesson. She's also one of the smartest people I know and still managed to dukes our year and most of her classes. To this day I still don't know how she managed that and where she kept all the information we learnt in class. It's insane. I asked for a pencil very often. I grew up very poor and I could never ask my parents for something like pens or pencils. School was hard. I was kicked out freshman year for bad grades. Sent to continuation. Kicked out of continuation and then continued adult education. Life was tough. I now work for CA Department of Corrections. And I make more than $100,000 a year. My kids will always have what they need. And some extra for others. I absolutely hated having to lend my pencils out and never get them back. I grew up poor, so it wasn't easy to furnish those to begin with. Eventually, I would only buy 2 mechanical pencils at the beginning of the year and leave one at home and carry one in my backpack with me. That way, when someone asked if they could borrow a pencil, I could say no and not feel guilty. I'm a stripper. I couldn't even remember to bring a pencil to school. I obviously wasn't cut out for a life that required a lot of responsibility. I'm an independent contractor, so I can show up to work whenever I want and don't have to remember a schedule. Plus I can get drunk at work. No responsibilities. Perfect. In my schools, the kids that did this were usually poor, dysfunctional, abusive homes, in a shelter, or part of the foster care system. They were also typically the ones asking others for their lunch scraps. A quarter. Loose leaf paper. Many of them didn't graduate high school. I always think about those kids. I also sympathize with those that have emotional, mental, or learning disorders. ADHD, anxiety, and language delays are heavy in my family. I started buying all types of cute or character pencils for my kids, as well as buying Ticonderoga pencils by the box, and would place tons of them everywhere in the house and in their backpacks and lockers. I was one of these. Specifically the not-so-great home life ones. By high school I figured out how to hide my book bag so my sister couldn't take stuff out of it. I only got regular lunches when I got an after-school job. Mom refused to give me lunch money because one time I went without lunch for a week to buy a book I wanted. Anyways, I'm pretty okay now. Married. Have a house. A dog. Trying to organically 3D print a person. I have started treating my depression and anxiety. Now I'm just trying to figure out healthy ways to take to people about what upsets me. Grade 5. I got 3 days ISS and a recommendation for military school. My detention slip read again, failed to bring necessary supplies and unprepared for class. I was such an obnoxious kid to Ms. Morgan. She looked for any way she could to get me out of her class. To be fair, she was a person who didn't need to be anywhere near a school. Now, honorably discharged combat vet. Massage therapist trying to get into grad school. Married to a beautiful woman and have 2 adorable idiotic cats. My own apartment. Decent credit. Good grades. A failing child is still a child. Blame the parents most of the time and support the child. I was the poor kid in the affluent part of the city. Not to say we were so poor my parents couldn't afford pencils. But I think when you're that kid, there are systematic processes in place where the school system sort of gives up on the poor kids to focus their efforts on kids who have more advantages. And when you are treated like you're a lost cause, you're going to internalize that, which is what I did. I didn't care about school. I was never prepared. Rarely did my homework. Hung out with mostly bad people. And almost didn't graduate high school. I borrowed more than my fair share of pencils back then. I worked dead-end jobs after I graduated. And never had much money. I think I was about 25 when I decided I didn't want to live like this until I died. Started surrounding myself with good people. Went to community college. Although scared I'd scrape by like I did in middle school and college, happened to have great teachers. Found out studying works and just kept at it. Transferred to a 4-year university. Earned 2 bachelor degrees a few years later in semi-related fields. Took on a sales position at a software and services company after graduating and have been doing well there for a while. Now I'm enrolled in school again working on my MBA. Oh, and now I have a whole gaggle of pencils sitting right next to me. TL. Long story short, things are going great. Thanks for asking. Were you also the ones that were asking for pencils in school? How did life turn out for you? Comment below.